Oh, hi. How are you? I hope everybody's having a good week. It's Friday. Well, it's Friday. That's even. Usually I don't. All right. So it's been a good week, and I hope everybody's had a productive week. Well, whoever tunes in has a productive week. If they don't tune in, I don't care if they have a productive week. It's not true. Um, yeah, I did a little bit of cleaning today because I've been feeling lousy for a few days. So it feels good to do some cleaning. And, you know, but, yep. Today, I want to talk about time. We're going to take some time to talk about time. But before we do that, let's do some housekeeping. Yesterday, the one page comic that I worked on was based on three, uno, dos, tres, suggestions that came out of a prompt bag. Prompt bag is when somebody writes a word on a post-it or a piece of paper, throws it into a bag. And then when you need an idea, you reach in and you pull out X amount of pieces of paper, and whatever the assembly is that you have, that's what you're working on. That's what you're going to try to put together. It's a great idea. And Dee Willingham does it on her website, or on her YouTube stream. So I asked her to pull some prompts for me the other day. And the three prompts were kangaroo, airplane, and pyramid. So, being typically me, I took the three prompts of airplane, kangaroo, and pyramid, and I did something silly with them. So, we got people writing stuff. Oh, hey, how you doing, Joan? Or Rachel Joan, I'm sorry. Or just Rachel. So instead of doing an expected idea of, a kangaroo takes an airplane to Egypt for a boxing match or something, or any other similar kind of combination of narrative, for some reason, I decided to switch the narrative voice to Rachel works too. Excellent. Rach. Oh, I like that. So the idea here is that this is a little guy in grade 5 who is writing he's doing a writing assignment for his teacher about his favorite superhero, which is the Australian Rumour, and it's a kangaroo themed superhero because I'm awkward like that. And while on an airplane, he foiled a robbery of the fancy pyramid-shaped diamond. So it has the three elements in it. Technically it does. Because there's pyramid in there, there's kangaroo, mind you, it's a kangaroo-themed superhero, and it takes place on an airplane. The pyramid is a little diamond pyramid, as opposed to the pyramids. But that's the fun thing I think about this prompt idea is that, well, here's the words, and then of course there's the value of those words and the association that you would have for those words. So if you're assembling images and you're looking for pyramidal shapes, you have a wild assortment in the world of things that you can use. And so it's this tiny little thingamajigger that the bad guy is dropping his plastic knife and his little pyramid on the floor as he's getting kicked in the face by this here hero. So, anyways. And if you read today's page with an Australian accent, you get more out of it. Or, Australian accent. Did I say Australian accent? Yeah. So, it's silly, but it's fun, right? I'm missing stuff. What is it? Oh, Reach works too. Imagination is far more important than rules. Yeah, no rules except enjoy. That's great. That's DD is definitely like that. I'm a firm adherent to the idea that imagination is far more important than rules, and I'm a firm adherent to the idea that you can take any specific concept, which is why I open up the idea of the one-page comic suggestions to everybody under the sun, because I'm working on stuff anyways. My mornings generally are spent trying to put together projects for other people or for myself. And then come lunchtime, after lunchtime is where I invest a piece of my afternoon to doing these one-page comic suggestions from whatever notions that people have. Sometimes they're really minor, 3 words, which is a nice broad stroke for whatever you want to do with it. And sometimes they're very elaborate. But, I'm not asking people for scripts, and I'm not asking people for the most transcendent idea in the universe, And I definitely don't want the plot to Game of Thrones. But, because that's what will happen sometimes, is, hey, you throw a comic suggestion my way, and then somebody sends you a 16-page 16-page description of a belt buckle. That's usually how we refer to it now here. Okay, so this is this week's pages so far. We've got Monday was Rock and Roll Librarians. And Tuesday is The Citadel at the End of Time. I guess it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Sorry, Monday was the 4-page piece. Yesterday was Focal Point, which is about a card that crashes into anything with a target shape or a bullseye shape on it. And see, that's what I mean. Like, that's kind of a very interesting suggestion, very specified suggestion. And then, of course, yesterday's suggestion was kangaroo airplane pyramid. So lots of fun in the sun. Today, who knows? Yeah, well. So I've got a couple of things on the docket, and if anybody wants to pipe in with their vote, here we go. Switch your camera, Rooney. Okay, these are the original pages. Before we forget, finish off the housekeeping. This is the drawn images that I did, and then the rest of it is all monkeying around in Photoshop and programs and making the airplane environment. And then there's our notes or breakdowns as I laid it out yesterday. I chose instead to cut down some of the panels and just go for the impact, because I decided at some point, that we're going to do the narrative from the voice of a child in grade 5. Come on, everybody remembers writing their little book reports on somebody and how terrible they were. Isn't that fun? There's a little bit of liberation in it. You are a little weird. A little. Stick around. Perhaps you all appreciate me. It's very nice of you. Yeah, you ain't saying nothing yet. All right, these pages are on the pile. So, okay, so the suggestions, something that came in yesterday was a man with an affliction. He always sounds like he's being sarcastic, but is being absolutely genuine. Right? Oh, the Roo has a pouch. Sorry, it says in the dialogue, I'll show you this. It says in the dialogue, the third little piece of text here, he says, he has a magic pouch and wears boxing gloves. His hat has real ears on it, but they are not real ears. See? So I'm trying to capture that voice of a kid. So yeah, so if you see, he's got a fanny pack is what I was reminded that they're called. He's wearing a fanny pack around his waist, which is his magic pouch. So, you betcha. Anyways. Oh yeah, so the yesterday's suggestion, man with an affliction, he always sounds like he's being sarcastic, but is being absolutely genuine. This is the worst, right? So, it's so much more authentic with the accent. That's why I'm saying to people, and I said it when I put it out as a post today, read it with an Australian accent. If anyone is Australian, I apologize. But it's meant in love. So, but it's meant to, as those being written by a little boy named Maddie Wilkins, who's in grade 5. So you got to read it as a grade 5 kid. It's Australian. All right, so this is yesterday's suggestion, the sarcastic guy. I thought if I'm going to do a sarcastic comic, why not do it about an auditor? Cause and Effect is still standing right now. And the ever-present haunted bow tie. Anyone that wears it kills. I will do that one day. I will. I just like holding it off. Cause and effect is there. Rocket ship was a suggestion. Person with water powers, but only the ability to desalinate water. Yeah. So I think I'm going to... what else am I missing if I caught up on everything? Cowboy Bug Lizard's done. Kangaroo Airplane Pyramid is done. Okay, so I think we're going to do, because it's fresh and fun, right? But Rach, feel free to throw a one-page comic suggestion at me. I am ready for it. Hold on. Now I'm ready for it. You know why I'm ready for it? Because I'm listening to Burton Cummings. That's why. Musical selection today is Burton Cummings' Dream of a Child. Look it up. It's crazy fun. Okay. I had the opportunity to meet Burton Cummings at the store I used to work at. And he might be maybe almost the nicest musician I've ever seen. All right. So, Sarcastic Man. Sarcastic Man. Sarcastic Man. So, I've been doing these monotone pieces this week. And that's fun. And I'm just trying to example that you can do a lot with monotone pieces. Work it right to the nub. Right to the nub. That's why they make these things. What? Child making decision at McD's electronic kiosk. Or as I call that, nightmare fuel. All right, I read it in the book. Child making a decision at a McD's electronic kiosk. All right. That's good. That's good. I like that a lot. And I'm going to tell everybody that it was your idea, Rachel. People say, what in the world have you done? And I'll say, Rachel said. Yeah. That's the best part of suggestions from other people is that I ain't done nothing. I ain't done nothing. All right, so two choices. I can draw in markers, or I can draw in pencil crayons. I don't particularly care one way or the other. But if anybody ever in La La Land has a preference, let me know. Let me know, Pocono. Okay, so the idea here, I'm going to write it down on this piece of magic paper. So the one we got today is sarcastic sounding guy. I got to shorten down the description. That is meaning to be genuine. How's that sound? That sounds great, Chris. Oh, that's fantastic, Chris. Okay. A little weird. That's a compliment. Okay, so Gary Hodges. So the idea behind today's jibber jabber while I'm working, and I'm not going to plot out a page. I'm just going to start doodly doing, right? And the best thing about doodly doing is to just get at it, right? Rachel says, saw some of Burton Cummings' initial public performances on the steps of the Winnipeg, Manitoba Legislation Building at the foot of the Golden Boy statue. This would have been a while ago. That's pretty fantastic. Respect to that one. Boy, oh boy, big star. You get a star for that. Yeah, I met him like 3 years ago, just before the lockdowns. And yeah, he was really cool. He was really cool. And we were talking, and I said, I really enjoy your music. He goes, oh, yeah, well, that's very nice. Yeah, it's nice when people say that. And I said, my favorite song is Guns, Guns, Guns. And he goes, oh, you do know my music. Yep. Which is a weird song to be a favorite. Burton Cummings song. I recognize that. But that's the thing about music. There's just certain songs that just stand out for us that, might be not be the ones that people expect. Okay, so one of the reasons that I work in mark making medium that doesn't require a lot of the time, I'll just go and draw in pen, or I'll just go and draw in marker or pencil crayon and skip the penciling stage altogether, like now. And the reason for that is that there's not enough time in the day, but at the same time, I don't want to have to trace over my own drawings. In this industry, there's an awful lot of drawing it all out and then tracing it over in ink. And now you can get some lovely little fluid lines in ink. And I was showing that about the page I posted today, because the pen that I was using, the Fudenosuke pen, they've got a really nice brush tip on it that, you can really apply by applying pressure. You can get, thin lines, and then the more you press down, you get thicker lines. But generally, I don't want to do it. I don't want to ink my own images. So that's why I do it this way. And this sort of connects to today's subject of choice, which is time. There's a realization about two things. One, nobody has any idea how much time it takes you to do anything. People do not seem to understand. Art just doesn't appear, or any specific projects that people are working on, is one of those things that can't be quantified to people. That just, they're never going to get any reference to it unless they themselves try it, or they themselves can actually physically see you doing it, realizing, oh, okay, I get it. It takes a little more time than I initially thought. But even that's challenging. I'm missing stuff. I'm so sorry. Oh, there we go. A commitment to intention when you use a pen. Yeah, no, sure, you don't get to erase, but at the same time, you're more measured in the lines that you put down. If you don't have the time to think too much about, too much preciousness about, well, I know that if I make this mark, if it's not correct, right? But by doing it with an ink, or by you can still lift things off. You can still go over top things. Like, the one thing about Posca pens is that Posca pens will pretty much go over top of everything. But you can still correct things. But you're right. There is some commitment to it. There is some pushing yourself with that. But at the same time, it's going to allow you to develop a little bit more skills to it, right? So there we are so far. I'm sorry, the camera's so far away. But it allows you to have a better comprehension of the medium that you're using too. Hey, it's Frankly. How you doing, Frankly? Time is relative. Even when drawing something simple, it takes time. Sure, but that's part of the thing. Drawing stuff and the knowledge of time consumption on your part, and the knowledge of understanding that you're going to have in relationship to the time it takes other people to do things from your own comparison, is one thing. But people that don't know, people that are outside of that creative partition, it's almost like a partition of people that are caught up in the fabricating of things, and people that are caught up in purely the consumption of things. And when you try to show them, when you try to say, hey, this takes me a degree of time, and they go, yeah, okay, but how much is it? You get that at shows, or you'll get a complete lack of, honestly, consideration towards, you've got to manage your time. You got to really manage your time, and you got to manage your economics to be able to do whatever you're doing. And if you get involved with other people on other engagements, this is aside from responsibilities. This is aside from, you got a family, you got kids, you got a partner, you got pets. Pets count in this. That's one side of it. Is the light on? Yeah. The other side of it is the discipline that it takes to sit down and actually do the things and actually make the materials. You know, the people outside of makers, you can't expect them to understand. You simply can't. They're not going to. It's a consumption-based society in this capitalist system we live in, and that sounds really political and aggressive, and I don't mean it like that. It just is. What am I missing? I was jokingly told by someone on Instagram that they're waiting on a drawing suggested for the villain fan arts I'm doing. It still takes time. Yeah, well, here's an idea. Did they pay you to do it? If they pay you to do it, do that one first, get it out of the way, and get on with your thing. If they didn't pay you to do it, sound effects, folks, those are free. That's the rough part. I mean, that's the thing, is that, well, my expectation is for my accommodation because I am consumer, right? I don't know any better. I'm going to flick through the social media sites and just, not even consider that maybe liking the work by some people that I might put forward the opportunity that I get to see more things like that. I mean, when you can't even get that association into people. And I'm talking in this case as well about other creatives too. That just this, oh yeah, that's cool. Well, there's got to be some degree of reciprocity, some degree of engagement. What do you want, Corbin? Yeah, it's got to be a fun thing. It's got to be a fun thing. That's right, frankly. Their expectations may not match your finished product. You will likely exceed expectations. Well, yeah, but that's a wonderful point. It's a wonderful point, Rachel, because your investment into whatever your projects are is always going to exceed. Words are hard today. What their initial thought would be that you were going to hand over to them, because the appreciation that you have, that someone appreciates your aesthetic and you want to reply to that in the way that we reply, part of our communication base is by creating things, by crafting things. That's why we put X amount of effort in whenever we have the opportunity to do something. And it's like, well, dude, it's only this thing. Take it easy. Well, we don't take it easy. Hi, Raul. How you doing? Welcome aboard. Oh, Raul saying hi to everybody. Frankly says that the person was joking. It was another artist. Well, then maybe that's a dumb joke. And if that's the type of humor that's put out and that's the type of humor that's returned, well, then that's a non-issue, right? But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, why would we joke at each other about the thing that causes each of us individually umbrage? This infuriates me when people do that. You mean this? Right? Rachel says, the challenge is half the fun. I completely concur with that. If you get the opportunity to work on something for somebody and somebody's contacted you and said, I really enjoy what you do, would you consider doing this for me? And it's a real deal. That's a neat thing. That's the sort of thing that you as creator don't necessarily get engaged with all the time. And when I say you, I mean me as well. You don't necessarily get that all the time. I don't necessarily get that all the time. And so when someone says, hey, I like the way you draw them pineapples. I don't know why I said pineapples. But Raul has a stomach bug, everyone. That's the challenge, right? Is that you want to meet that challenge. You want to take that on. Rachel, you're exactly right in that. But it's still time. And it still comes back to, it takes X amount of time to produce X amount of thing. And because there is that, and I truly believe that creating is a calling, it's a foundational part of a person's character. And because of that, there's going to be a different value system in the time spent on producing things, the time spent on investing in the mental apparatus required for inventing and things and coming up with stories or crafting images, or just the time consumption about mediums, and how this takes this much time to draw in between applications, or I need this much space allocation around me in order to do a certain thing, or there's all those factors that other people will never see. They'll never see them. They don't necessarily exist as far as they're concerned. That's a pretty cool pineapple drawing, So what do you do for a living? Which is the most loaded thing a person says to, this. If you go to a person's art show and ask that artist what they do for a living, get out of their art show. It's so unfair. I watched. It's the funniest cartoon in the world. Is a person standing behind an artist at an easel asking the artist what they do for a living. And I say it's funny because it's so discourteous, right? Most people don't even realize that cartoonist was probably cathartically trying to spit something out that was antagonizing him, but still, what a thing. But if I also know an artist who somebody came up to him at their show and asked them that, and I'm like, wow, really? That's just, in this context, this is what you do. But I still did it because people don't know. So that's the challenge. The other part is, hey, I know you're at home all day, and this is the one that I get all the time. I know you're at home, so you want to go and do this? No, I'm sorry, I got stuff to do. Yeah, but you could do that later. No, this is what time I have for it. Yeah, that was incredibly low of them to do that to this person at their show, and it was a relative for that person as well. So it's like, get out of the show. There's a verbal illustration about the maintenance guy of a factory that charges over $1,000 to flip a button. They're paying for his knowledge of which button to push and when to flip it. when to push it. Sure, I guess. There has to be some appreciation of effort involved in anything. But at the same time, again, in this society that we live in, that's secondary to accommodating other particular interests, right? What does Frankly say? I've been given advice. You like to draw comics. Have you thought of doing this completely different art form? Well, have you? Is that frankly? Are you suggesting that they're saying that you should do something else instead? Is that what that is in reference to? Because that's not very. You don't need that person around. I'm at that point in life where I've got that short meter, right? And that short meter is if people are like that, you don't need to be here. On occasion, your audience must decide which to use, their eyes or their mouth. That's very true, Rachel. I was asked to write an art column for a magazine that was starting up here in London, and then eventually went on to Toronto and became a big magazine. But I was asked to write an art column on it, and so I said, "Oh, okay." So I accepted that. And went home and started thinking about, well, what could I write columns about? And then I was talking to the editor the next day, and they said, so what kind of what are you going to review? And I said, what are you talking about? I thought it was a column. Yeah, but you got to do some art reviews and stuff like that for it as well as column pieces, right? I said, okay. So I wrote him a column, and to show the quality of character that this editor had, they published what I gave them. And what I gave them was art criticism as an oxymoron, was the article that I wrote for them. And Because unfortunately, with art criticism, you're not going to find, an omnipresent omniscience, a person that has a general aesthetic that there is some sort of quantity to all art expressed, right? And if you can find that person, you still have to have that person magically be able to separate their own personal bias on their own personal aesthetic out from the ability to write an art review. There's the challenge, because we're all just people. Audience must decide. Frank says this wasn't my audience. There was somebody that I knew who thought they were helping me. Yeah, you don't need that person's help. By the way, my brain finally kicked in. Your brother lives in Byron. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I'm on the exact opposite. Well, not exact opposite side. I am in Huron Heights, which is Huron and Highbury, just north of that. So I don't ask for advice from people who don't do what I do. That's a healthy way of looking at it. I like that drawing, Chris. The colors look nice. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of monotone stuff, so I had to promise myself I'm going to do some color for people. Hey, look out. This guy's on the road. Hey, mister, we're driving back to Sacramento. Back from Sacramento, probably. The show was great. Your show is great. Hey, thank you, Jim. It's nice, yeah. 7. Hey, it's 7. It's good to see. It's good to see you out and about, 7. Welcome aboard. It's yeah, happy to hear your voice. Happy to hear you out there, and so you've been going through some stuff. But yeah, I hope that you're giving yourself some time to do what you need to do to feel good in your day. It's one thing that, especially when we're standing by other people with what they're going through, we got to make sure we're taking that moment to make sure that we're healthy. Okay, so where was it? Okay, back to time for a moment. And the thing about time and the thing about your level of productivity is that there's no such thing as a uniformity in the expectation of output from people. And hey, look at this person. Where is he? There he is. It's Philip. Philip's joined us. Hey, buddy. There's no such thing as quantitative time on productivity that is applied universally across everybody. You are not allowed, and this is a firm thing, you're not allowed to say that somebody's slow, and you're not allowed to say that somebody is, well, just anything. You're not allowed to make any judgment, I think, personally, and on the amount of time that people need to take to do the thing that they're doing, because that's their thing and they're doing it, right? And sometimes that's a challenge, because the worst expectation on getting a thing done is honestly yourself. Nobody's going to have a harder time on you about when you want to have certain things produced than you yourself. So the first person you got to tell to back off on that is, anybody? Drum roll. It's you. It's you yourself. Take it easy. And it's exciting, and people get excited. Like 7, that's very nice of you. Sorry, I'm trying to keep up, guys. My chat doesn't pop up on the video afterwards, and sometimes people don't know what I'm talking about when I'm just talking to the chat, because I have not figured out how to do that. I know Didi's tried to explain it to me, but robots are tough. Yeah, we're all happy to see you back, 7. We're all happy to see you. There we go. So yeah, there's look at this. I'm going to put some stuff up, 7. See that? Missed you, 7. Right? And there you go. You're thought of, sir. Well, person. I'm not sure if 7 is a male or female. I have honestly never asked. I know somebody that. Oh, look at this. Look at this. Look at all that. My goodness, you guys are great. My friend had a child they named 7 as a little girl, and then I know somebody else named 7, and they're a boy, so I have no idea. And I never ask. So neither should anybody feel like they have to explain either. Anyways, yeah, there's when you get close to the conclusion of something, and as soon as you tell people, people are like, when is it gonna happen, right? That's the worst, because these aren't people that are necessarily trying to pressure you, but sometimes we're unwitting to the fact that we pressure each other, right? And that's it. You just got to do whatever you're going to do in your time, and even when people are excited and enthusiastic about it coming out, it's going to come out when you're ready, because that's what makes it so spicy. That's what makes it so nicely, so well done. So just as an aside, just give me 1 second here. When I'm working with markers, I'm thinking about an underlying value. It's the same as when you're painting. So when I'm thinking of the flesh tone, for whatever reason, I prefer to use an orange, not a pink. And when I'm doing his shirt, because this is me drawing our accountant actuarial type for the sarcastic sounding guy that is meaning to be genuine. That's how I synopsized what Gary suggested yesterday. So I've decided I'm going to do a story about an actuarial that just, is always trying to make friends and trying to be, because it's the unfortunate truth of his job is that people are just going to automatically, some people are, not everybody, is going to have that personality bias. Oh, so actuarial, what does that mean? Does it mean tax man? And it doesn't. It doesn't mean that. But, and also Rachel gets my joke. He's a blue collar accountant. Thank you. I always draw them with blue collars. I can't help that. Thank you so much for catching that. So I break things down in a base value. And what I mean by that is that this is the underlying color that runs through this part of the environment. And when you look at whatever it is that you're drawing, if you want to make sure that you inform yourself that you need to keep moving around different color values and things that work together, then look at things as just an underlying value. Look at things as, the white dress shirt has got this internal tone of blue. And then we can go in and put on other things on top of that. Like we can bring in some grays. We can bring in other. Hiya, Janet. Welcome aboard. Hey, look at that. We've got some really fantastically fun people coming out today. Thanks for that, gang. I hope, if there's any questions that anybody has about whatever this madness is that I'm up to, and feel free, everybody, to jump in on the conversation at hand, too. We're talking about time and the time it takes you to produce whatever it is you're producing, and trying to come to some sort of logistical comprehension of how other people associate creative people's time and henceforth their output. So that's gonna get a star. You're gonna get a star for this, Raoul. That looks like your German grandpa. Is that right? There we go. Was he an accountant? No matter how I try to draw, I tend to, and this is something that you might notice with your own work, is that we all tend to have an associated style after a while of drawing that even when you're doing portraits of people, there's a little bit of you in there, or there's a little bit of your stylistic approach to certain marks that you make. And mine is, hard lights under the chin and the nose, and prominent noses. Don't know why. And but a lot of it has to do with the fact that the face that we know the best is our own. And so even when you're doing images of other people, you always put a little bit of your own noggin and schnoz in there. So schnoz, it's a scientific term at this point. All right, so as I'm laying in the arm and getting this down, so we're going to put his wrist in here at this point and get some of the interesting material down in the foreground, like his hands. And Janet says, no wonder all my faces look like 12-year-old boys. Get the star. Was just listening into that comforting radio host like voice, Christopher. Oh, well, there you go. Thanks, Evan. What does it say? Oh, now he was working on a ship during World War II. Oh my goodness. Is that right? So it kind of looks like back then. Someone once described their face to me as structurally sound. I like that a lot. I know somebody that got described as girthsome. People don't mean things, but to describe your own face as, my face is structurally sound, that's wonderful. It's, yeah, I love that a lot. It's the fact that it's them describing their own face. Yeah, so looking at the underlying color part and considering that, so that as we move around in the image and we start getting to these other parts of the body, I'm just going to put the one hand in here. Give me 1 sec, and I'll just get the rough line, and then we're going to put in his other hand, because guess what he's holding? You got it. Hot dog. Not a hot dog. All right. Think about how light moves around on the form. Pressure on a pencil or pen. Okay, so as I'm putting this hand in, and I'm thinking about the values and things like that of the structure of the hand and how it moves around in the space, and I'm also considering scale and how things relate to each other in the environment. Okay, so it sort of sets out for me where things are in the space itself. It tells me where the fingers are, where the hands are, where everything else is. But it also, more importantly, tells me more about the composition overall. Raoul asks, does your wife still speak fluently Netherlands? Say hi from me to her, and I cannot say that. I'm sorry, and I don't want to be insulting to Nederlanders. So, but yeah, I will pass that on in English. Of course, he's holding a hot dog. Of course, he is. Abreu's National Hot Dogs. There you go. Yeah, different kinds of hot dog brands. Everybody's got their particular. All right, so as I'm just gonna do the outline again to the form here, and then because let's get down to some of the shading jazz. And if you allow yourself this, here's a weird aside. If you allow yourself to do this and just do this sort of a line around the individual or the object or whatever you're drawing, if you draw in that contour line in certain areas rather than overly focus about drawing the entirety of the image in, sometimes as you're moving around through the composition, you realize, you know what, I'm going to leave that like that. I'm going to make this judicious decision at this point to not fill in the arm. I'm not going to bother with filling in the entirety of this particular part. So, you know, and there's something to that it's actually liberating, and it can give you some interesting opportunities by not having you to feel enforced to you know, specifically draw hard outlines around an entire composition, whatever the objects are inside, whatever the people are inside, so on and so forth. Blessed weekend to you as well, Raoul. Frank likes vegan hot dogs. Does my neighbor speak Spanish? Say this for me. Hola. It's a little bit easier to say that. No, my neighbor doesn't. My mother took Spanish. Here's a silly aside story. My mother took Spanish for an entire year. God love her. But this is the Spanish that she learned to speak muy poquito. And boy, is that ever true? Muy poquito. Habla español. So yeah, no Spanish there. But her good friend is Spanish, and so she tried to learn Spanish there to try to engage more with her friend. And yeah, muy poquito. Languages are hard. So anybody who speaks multiple languages, and I know Seven does, and I know Frankie got a couple under your belt too. His wife is Dutch like me. Dutch, Indonesian, Indian, German. My wife is Dutch. Dutch. It's Español difícil, Christopher. See, I took Spanish in high school, and I'm absolutely horrid at it. The trick is editing videos. Keeps me busy. New magic trick. Okay, so now I'm putting in that secondary value, and this is the reason I didn't finish doing the whole of the composition is that I wanted to show you that when you're adding in that secondary value to your composition, come at it from a light point and work darker as you go along in your composition, but don't jump right into, especially when you're working in marker, don't jump right into a heavy contrast. And the reason that you shouldn't jump right into a heavy contrast is that you're locked in like that, and it may very well demoralize you and say, well, I put that in there so tight that now what? I can't, now I have to go to these extra steps to claw that back. So come at it from the lighter values and work your way up. And that's a nice, good feeling for you that way. And you should still have that inspiration to keep things moving along. Seven, you haven't been here for a while. So I had the fun opportunity, and I'm really thankful for this. I really appreciate being asked. Surprised when I was asked, but it's super fun to do it. I've done some a couple of voices for Jim Luan's new film, and I'm really appreciative to be a part of that. But neither of them are kind of my normal voice. They're both. I give them primarily some silly voices because that there is what that is. But it was a lot of fun. So I'm bringing that gray into the hair over the orange, which of course turns out orange right down. But putting these little accents through the face, they sort of establish for us that sort of, I'm bringing it closer for some of those details, but it sort of allows us to imply the shadow. More so than, it's more that we're actually defining it a little bit better than just having it as the shadow as implied by the single tone. By putting in that secondary one, we're going to get a little more depth here. And that same value, because we're moving it throughout the entirety of the composition, it sort of becomes a tying factor. It sort of becomes something that brings together the different parts of the drawing. And again, working up from light instead of jumping right into dark. Now, other people will say just go opaque all the way, just put the colors down and put the next color over, and so on and so forth. And that works in painting, and that works in a lot of other things like that. But when you're doing a little bit of fine point marker drawing, not so easy. And the fantastically super tools that I'm using today, I believe I bought at a dollar store. I don't know. What am I? Rachel does not associate the word normal with me. Thank you. Oh, that's nice, ES7. That's nice. I'll just sit there and read the shipping news at night. See if that helps everybody goes to sleep. Yeah, is it soothing? Thank you, Rachel. It's the baritone. If you're having a long day and you're having a hard time getting a rest, give me a call. I'll talk about something completely innocuous to reality, and you will immediately fall asleep. This is the voice that my kids and my grandkids hear when they're being talked to. It's yeah. Normal is the weird you're used to. I like that a lot. That's a lot of fun. Normal is the weird. I operate in normal. That's my bread and butter, yo. It's like I understand I'm a weird guy. I get that. I'm sitting here in a beat up cap and a suit jacket, thanks. And I'm at home. Like, what am I doing? And I had a conversation I had with somebody on Zoom about prospective job. But again, that's where the time factor came in for this whole point of conversation. I had a few things lined up today that this is why it made me want to talk about time. A show that I submitted to, which is a big show in the region, for Comic Card. And what had happened is, yes, we'd love to have you, but we're going to have to put you on a waiting list because we got so many people and we're so popular. Okay, that's fine, because I want to hear that, the situation's popular, because I want to, there's a reason I want to be at it, right? So that's okay. But then they tell me now, right? They tell me now. And it's like, hey, you want to do this thing, this close to what day it is today. So I should have been under the understanding that be prepared to plan everything in your life differently, because we're going to let you know with little notice that you're a part of this thing or not. And that's one of those frustrating things, is that even these organizers of a show, which is one to support and encourage creatives in the arts, even they don't get it. That, that's time. That's time that we need. ASMR art lessons by Christopher right after painting with Bob Ross. I don't know. A friend was asked to do voiceovers and used to practice by reading the telephone book. That's fantastic. Bob Flubber, 519. Yeah, why not? Whatever works. So I'm going to put in a tertiary value in this and in the shirt. And the reason that I'm doing this is to give it a little bit of juice. And what I mean by that is, as we get down into the shadows, now, if I'm going to add this third value that's very light, okay, but at the same time, that third value pushes back this part of the form. And if I start putting this third value into some of these folds and the like, it shouldn't be too overpowering, but at the same time, it should strengthen the fact that these are shaded out areas. Oops, I'm sorry. There we go. I hope that makes sense. So rather than pressing down harder or putting down some heavier lines to push those shadow values, I'm putting in this light third color, which is related to the blue, base blue, yellow, blue, make green, right? The yellow gets pulled out of the orange. So between those two, the green is a unifying color. But here's the fun part, and this might be the part that makes or breaks the whole world. I carry that up into the face as well, because there's certain little little pinches, little punches of the green in the face, not overwhelmingly so. But you you picked up on that, did you? 519, that's the London area code. And we've added another new prefix number. For the longest time, London was 432 or 434, and we've got more and more combinations as the city gets bigger. We're almost at 500,000 people now. Boy, oh boy. I remember when this here city. Yep. A little bit of shadow under the nose. Just adding little bits of depth. There's a grayscale and a blue. Yeah. Yeah, you gotta. So these are the 4 values that we've put in so far, right? And I'm not going too heavy on. I'm not going too heavy on the colors that I'm starting out with and working in. But and then when I do come in with a really impactful value like a red or a deeper blue, you have to be very sparing in those, because they are going to make such an impact with such a small amount. So just the deep hits, kind of like you would presuppose that you would use a black in, right? Because there's already lots of red inside that orange. I still haven't drawn the pen in. There we go. Okay, so wow. Okay, so this is where when you start putting in some more details with a darker value, this is where you can start doing the little hits, right? At this point in time. And those hits are going to be so impactful. Just put them down in a really minor way, because they're already going to have a lot of impact in just the little amounts that are down there. So like I'm putting this watch band in, or the underlip of the shirt, right? The little pinches of color inside the neckline here. So yeah, so this is how I draw when I'm drawing with the markers. I would prefer that you built up your blacks when you draw. Well, for me at least, I always try to encourage this of others. I never understood it when I was younger, but if you can build up what's basically your blacks in your drawing, as opposed to just running to a black, if you can look at putting a brown in a deep blue, like your standardized browns or umber browns, if you got to get specific, as opposed to putting in a deep hit of black, because it's going to make a huge change to how it is if your lines are going down. So if I come in now with this brown, it's a far more interesting implied black with so much more. You'll have so much more color in that, so much more depth in that than you would have otherwise. And like the red, I'm being really sparing in this application of a brown. Little deep lines. But hopefully it's bringing that form to it. So let's try. So by putting in these little soft touches and these soft lines, hopefully that's really doing the push and pull of the surface. It's even when I like to work mixed medium, but even when I'm working with one principal medium at hand, I still can't just work flat color. I still want to do little texturous things and little build-ups. And for me, I can work my way up to what it is that I'm trying to say visually. Have I created with digital too, or do you prefer working with ink and pen? Yeah, I've done, let me see. I'll try to find a, so with the one-page comics, I'm just seeing what I can pull up for you. I have fully digital images as well that I've done. And then there's an awful lot of manipulation that I do digitally as well. Like some of the collage stuff. This is, let me switch. I'll switch over for you for a sec. Bingo. So this is all digital. This is entirely digitally done, but it's a lot of collage work. It's Chuck Norris hosts a fashion show. That was the suggestion. I believe I drew this digitally. Bad Guys, am I right? No, this is mixed. This is a mixed. Zoop. So of all the pages, I did this with the grandkids, the two oldest grandkids anyways. And so this astronaut I drew digitally, but this is a really fun one-page comic idea about Mars attacks Earth but fails miserably. And if you ever sit down and do stuff with a child, you realize that you can't keep up. Their rate of free-form, intuitive thinking and producing is just going to overwhelm you if it's and you got to let it go. You got to let that, once you've untapped that, you just got to let it spill out. So I would put these little tiny moments in of I don't think I'm enjoying this. So I draw this astronaut with a digital pen, and then I put the skeleton in behind it, and convert that to red and put in some other little effects and doodads. And then at the same time, on the same piece, because it's a 6-page thing, I've got a silly little painted thing on a piece of paper, my drawing of the Earth, and my granddaughter's drawing of Mars beside it. Mars has rings on it because they're cool. That's the stuff I'm talking about. That's the stuff that I love that perspective. But yeah, digital is something fun too. And I end up doing a lot of digital stuff in whatever it is that I'm working on in the moment, because of the fact that I'll forget to draw something and I'll put it in. This is entirely drawn digitally, I believe. So this is The Bridal Bouquet. This is about a bridesmaid who's absolutely determined to get married. So yeah, so that's some of those. We've this is number 68 of the one-page comic suggestions live. So yeah, I this sounds silly, but I sometimes, when did I do this one? Oh, you're very welcome. Oh, thank you, Seven. That's very nice of you. And thank you as well, Rachel. That was nice of you to ask. The thing about any medium that we choose to work from, it's entirely up to us how we go about things, and how we explore stuff. I find myself backing up things. Every action I'm doing, I'm kind of, the previous action to that is actually me probably backing up what I just did a moment ago, so that in the next thing that I'm learning as I go, and I don't want to lose the thing that I just learned and did on a page. So even while I'm working digitally, I think that that whole, you just take a step back and everything's fine again, I still don't live by that principle. I still live on the principle that if I look at it sideways, the computer is going to die and I'm going to lose everything that's on it, which isn't true. It's not true. I also have a studio cat who likes to press buttons for me. If he sees me engaged on the computer here in the studio in the PC, he'll reach up from underneath and shift or control gets hit. And then I have to figure out what just happened. Because it's my fault for not having kept them fed in that very moment. Kids are the same way. They're all maniacs. Yeah. Which, of course, falls back in the topic of today. Time. Yeah, so good news and bad news with time. You're going to find that over the course of, as soon as you start putting yourself out and start, doing projects with and for other people, then it becomes, how do you adjudicate your time, and how do you accomplish the objectives that you're setting forward for yourself in a comfortable way with that time that you've got, and still live a life. That's what keeps people from going crazy, by the way. Make sure that you're still able to spend that time engaging with the other humans. So, because it's a very healthy and happy thing to do, to pursue your own creative interests, but at the same time, you got to remember, I got to live outside my head sometimes. To the best of anybody's ability, right? Cats like to delete your hard work, says Frank. And that is very true. I've had paintings in the past that, I've woke up in the morning and there is, one of the kids helping me. What is it? What am I? Filler number 5 done, frankly. Well done. Janet says, engage with other humans? Ugh, not a fan. Do what I do, Janet. Just stare him down. Yeah. If you didn't use a mouse, the cat would not be as likely to assist. That's great. I use my mouse rarely. I'm primarily using the pen when I'm working, but I got the mouse for when I'm doing this because I can just reach to the side and not have to touch the screen over there. And I've got my studio set up so that there's traditional work this way. My desk is a large L shape, and it's more like a chevron. But and I turn this way, and it's digital. If over here on these counters is where I'm working on 3-dimensional stuff with like models with the grandkids and carving stamps and stuff. And then painting is up here behind me. And I plan on doing some more on this. I don't know. I don't show this much, but so this is a painting I've been working on every now and then. It says, hey, Bob, want to see my dance moves? No, thanks, Lou. Not today. Huh? Rachel, always hit save before napping. Always hit save. Very true. Frank doesn't even have a mouse set up anymore. Oh my gosh. There was a science fiction movie and these guys traveled back from the past. And so the one guy is pretending to be some kind of engineer. And they said, well, why don't you show us this recipe that you've got that will help our business? And he says, of course. And he sits down in front of the computer and he starts talking to it. And somebody goes, what are you doing? And he goes, what's wrong with this thing? And the guy holds up the mouse and he goes, aha. Okay. He starts talking to the mouse. And I think, well, that's ridiculous. And then, of course, here we are a couple of years later, and we're all shouting at our series for translating the thing that we barked at it to type for us, and it gets it wrong. Come on, Siri. Stupid Siri. Siri will be the first AI that develops a real complex for being chastised more regularly than necessary. So there's putting in that tip of that pen. and then changing this value again as I'm put a couple little pieces of paper down, and then I'm going to move on to the next. Well, I don't know. I see, this is the debate I always have with myself, is what is the necessity of the background? Because it isn't always necessary. Philip's back, everybody. A touchpad can be just as dangerous. It sure can. It sure can. I'm not an iPad guy. I know everybody's iPad Pro. Yeah, well, I was yelling at my computer this morning. Yelling at it because it's caused me no end of problems about my website. My website's finally updated. And I honestly just lost my temper with an inanimate object this morning. So, because the X amount of time that I have to get some things done today, it is taking that up, and I do not need it to. So, I explained that to my computer, and you know what it said back to me? Nothing. It's a computer. And I was waiting too. I was expecting some kind of apology. Nothing. So if there's one thing I'll say about computers, is that they are rude. Yeah, people don't seem to get how much time it takes. Some people in their studio, some people don't understand how much time it takes people to get a project done. There's an expectation of immediacy when people have asked you to do projects for them. You know, I want this done. Okay. So tomorrow, or like, it's an 8-foot by 10-foot painting. What are you talking about tomorrow? Right? This is it. Philip has said, I did the iPad. Hey, it's Penny. Hi, Penny. I saw your stream the other day. I haven't had a chance to watch it, but I got it bookmarked so that I can. I did the iPad thing. It's definitely addictive. I think all technology is addictive. I like that it says defiantly addictive. I think all technology is addictive, right? Period. Just, we're not prepared for it. We're just simply not. Favorite meme lately: a rabbit with a beer in his hand responding to a bartender's question why he was with a minister and a priest. I wouldn't be here except for a typo. Oh, I'm going to leave that up there for a minute for people that need to take an extra second on stuff. Because that's a good joke. There's we read jokes at different speeds, right? Like there's, you tell a joke and you go, "Did you get it?" Give them a minute. I did a set because I was in a Great Canadian Laugh-Off competition some years ago, and I did a set where I spent 5 minutes talking about the most viable, common living arrangement that I've had in my adult life. It's about to celebrate its first year anniversary, and I start describing parts of it, and it's a 5-minute bit. And at the end of the 5 minutes, I said, well, basically what I'm saying is that if you want to have a happy, viable, live-in relationship, get a cat. And, I come home from work and there she is looking up at me with those yellow eyes. And, she's exotic. We don't speak the same language, and all these sort of implications that it's a cat, but never saying it. And so when I do say that at the end, there's this lady in the front row, and she goes, "Oh, I thought he was talking about a cat." It's like, did you figure that out? That's good. Yeah, great. But it's just, she was so loud. It's perfect. But that's the thing, right? Everybody gets stuff at different speeds. I think a majority of the room was in on it. And she had this sort of confused look in her face, and it was really, what's this person having a hard time with? And then when she said that at the end, I'm like, oh, she really was figuring it out. Nothing wrong with that. I should have been more explanative and just said cat right at the front. The hell with the humor. What have I missed here? 7. I usually just take a deep breath and scream. Oh, that's because 7 says I take a deep breath and say serenity now. Either one works, right? I like to go not I don't know. Usually when my wife's doing yoga in the next room, and at the end of the yoga session, let us all have a deep cleansing moment and say the mantra together. And whenever she does that, I'll be in my studio here going, well, not every time. Not since I got yelled at. I didn't get yelled at. I don't know what to say about if there's any way that we can have a deeper understanding with people that it takes time to make things, and if they're asking us to do it, please just give us a moment. I mean, more than that, what can you say? If you start making these declarative statements on your social outlets that don't expect a thing right away, because less people ask you for a thing. And we live in a society where a very large amount of people are very excited about AI because they can do all the things that they, honestly, many of them felt excluded from. They can just talk into a computer and it produces those things now, and without any thought towards the fact that that's a thing that people do. But it's not just there that this is happening. There's a great deal of things that artificial technology and being able to do printing from home, and you don't even have to have film developed anymore. You can just take whatever pictures you want digitally and print them out on your own doodad. You can even do it on photo paper if you still feel you need to. So Christopher says, I'm going to kill you, you stupid machine. I never call computers and things machines. I always call them robots. It's a silly thing, but that's what I do. That's what it does. All right, so I'm going to do his hair, and then we're going to move on to the next panel. So introducing our principal character and having him try to, be as jovial as I can. And we at 117. We got a few more minutes. Is the whole idea to how do you get sarcasm across in a page? Is my whole point. So at first we need to establish him appearing and saying things that maybe considered maybe. That's not that I want to write anything inflammatory, but it's where you can have a person say in text, it's not like I think they're stupid, right? So when you say that flat and dry, it's not like I think they're stupid. It's just a sentence. But when you read it, and this is the same thing for all text that's out there, any books that you read, even when you're reading the text of a film that's in a foreign language, but it has a translation for you in your own language underneath, it's not going to be the same as the conveyance that's coming out of the actors. It's just not. And it's not going to be the same as maybe sometimes the intended conveyance of the writers. So if I have him saying something like, it's not like I think people are stupid, honestly, how people read that page is entirely dependent on how they associate that sentence from their own experiences and their own lives and their own. So I can have somebody say, it's not like I think they're stupid, and you'll just read that as plain and easy, which is what necessitates me to say, have a title like The Most Sarcastic Man Alive, or the most sarcastic person, in quotations, alive, just to even push a button further. But because if I do that at the front, okay, everything that character says from that point forward is going to be perceived as sarcasm. It's going to be perceived as, to be, a flagrant disregard for other people or their feelings or stuff like that. And he doesn't intend that. He's not trying to be sarcastic. And, but everything that's going to be heard that's coming from his mouth is a sarcastic statement. So that's the way that we can get away with that. In a textual piece, how do you imply sarcasm on a person's word? It's incumbent on two things. One, how everybody responds to it. And two, prefacing it, right? Janice says, my new default setting is everybody is stupid. Prove me wrong. I have a sign up on the wall in my studio here that says, warning, no stupid people beyond this point. So, all things being relative. Seven has got an entire dialogue going on here about me in a war with robots. Thank you, Seven. I tend to look at, I grew up rough. And so because I grew up the way that I did, and because, we are made up of our experiences, it's hard to shake some habits that you form about how you associate your initial response and engagement with other people. And so I tend to walk into rooms with, just sort of expecting somebody to say something dumb. I just do. It's a habit. It's a negative habit that I'm trying to get rid of. Which would be a lot easier to do if they'd stop doing stupid things. Yeah. So Janet says, so you spend a lot of time alone. Rachel says, I took a step back the other day. I was disgusted watching a couple conversing on cell phones without ever saying one word, then realized they're both mute. Hanging a hidden shame. Do not judge. Oh, is that right? That could be confusing. I saw a person on a bus, because we don't always necessarily know, right? I saw there's a couple on the back of a bus, and they're signing to one another. And this one guy's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And the two sign people they did this to each other. That guy's crazy. Like they didn't take anything of it. He didn't understand they're deaf. And some lady barked at him and said, "They're deaf, stupid." It was really great. I said it the other day. This is years ago that happened. But. All right, so we've got our first guy established. We've got a palette established now. I tend to say whatever values that I'm using, whatever colors that I'm using, if I start a first panel with those, I'm going to stick with them through the page. The only thing that I would add to this spectrum of color, right, can be one of two colors, and two colors only that would be a variation on this, and that would be a yellow and, I'll grab the pink, and a really light purple. That's the only two colors that are really missing from the basic spread. And substituting the gray for black. And of course, the white is you don't put a mark in that spot. That's we're working on a white surface, so there's that, right? So by establishing our character first and foremost, it's sort of in a really clear and presentable way, and it sort of says to our viewer, this is the initial conception of our principle one that we need you to follow. And so I'm going to walk through this for a second, which is something I like to try to do for folks. So if I've got our guy and he's sitting here at his desk, okay, little pen, and then right here in text, and I want to try to play more and more with text. So I'm trying to get more strangely aggressive with incorporating the text into the art. So trying to fit the most sarcastic man in the world, and then having him say little pieces of dialogue over top. I'll do this in a different color, where he says, with the most sarcastic man, and there's a thing where he says, person in the world. Really? Because as soon as you see those two words, as soon as you see those two things, especially really with a question mark, the most sarcastic man in the world, you're going to picture him either saying, really? And then depending on your character, you might also picture him saying, really? Right? So that's the fun thing about the literary element of making sequential media. Comics is the visual component, the textual component, and then the third component of that is the fusion between the two. One part of it, if you're so stylized to lean towards the visual part. I just like to look at the pictures. I don't really necessarily like to read stuff. Well, I like to read the story and then try to look at the pictures and see how they associate. So there's those two sides of that coin. But the commonality of those two factors, and the thing that is the subversive element, is the fusion between the two. If you show something, don't write it. If you've written something down in your description, you don't have to show it, right? But then those are two fairly strong ways to look at visual storytelling, is that one supports the other. Now, however, there's the broken rule. And the broken rule is that you can have this arbitrary act or arbitrary object that's in there, and which forces you to think about, what is this thing? Is it some innocuous element, or is it something that's actually pertinent to the story? And the text can help support that, right? So that's where that fusion part of it comes in. Oh, thank you, Rachel. That's I appreciate that. That is a good example, actually. The page that I posted yesterday, I have it being read as a school writing report by a child in grade 5 in Australia. And so if you read it, and because it really says, Australian a couple times, but when you read at the end, I'm proud that he is Australian. When you see that the kid himself is Australian, it might make a couple of people go back and read it again with an Australian accent, because it affirms that it's an Australian character. And if I can incorporate things like that into a piece, just that fun little additional bit, whether it's a television commercial, or whether it's like the narration in Focal Point, the page that I did the day before, it is absolutely full of references to bullseyes. It's all synonyms. There's so many synonyms in that page. Could I make that squeaky yes sound anymore? There are so many synonyms in that page for bullseye, target, dead center, focus, button. The whole page is full of it. Whether anybody picks up on it, I don't know, right? But that's more for my own edification, right? Previous page to that is it sounds like the narration in this context is just this sort of this omnipotent voice of, this is the thing that has happened in this place. It doesn't make any sense for there to be narration on the page Citadel at the end of time, because if the only person at the end of time is this girl, this representation of a girl in a representation of the last tower or the last refuge, who's narrating this, right? There's two different perspectives you can look at it. You can either read it as the girl, she's writing this about herself, or you can read it as, an omnipotent God figure that narrates the story. So that's the beautiful tertiary affordance of sevens trapped in the synonym, because now 7 is focusing on apple cinnamon rolls. That's the beautiful thing about sequential media. It's a sequence of images and events. But when it's applied to things like comic books, and it's got the textual component added to it, you've got your visual, you've got your textual, and then you've got that fusion factor. And that fusion factor of how those two things incorporate together can give you wild and varying results. So explore that and experiment with that in whatever you're doing. I did a page that's in the first collection of one-page comics. There's a page, I showed this I think yesterday or so. This page talks about the visuals are a car crash. And the text is about if things aren't going the way you want to, just, hope for the best. And so by the end of the page, where the person is saying everything will be grand, is when the car smashes into the railing that protects you from going off the road. And as the narration says, smooth sailing then, the car is careening over the side of a cliff. So the text and the visuals run opposite to each other. So you can try all kinds of different things. I got a suggestion for, in one page, I got a suggestion for a cat lady. Let's see if I can find this one. I think I would know right where it was in my own thing. So, and I do it as a 1950s, 60s British program. Tonight on Peculiar Interest. Tonight we are visiting with pet owner Miss Doris Oates. And so it talks about this gal and her pets. And she's a cat. Doris is one of many elderly today that are looking for companionship, And it shows her bringing tea into the room, and then as she sits down and pans back, it's a cat lady. It's a cat lady that collects ladies. It's not a... Anyways, you gotta have fun. So that's the fun part, is the trying to figure out how to make a page sarcastic. And the only way I could think of doing it is a preface first and foremost, and then him trying to be positive when people are responding negatively, or him trying to respond like this and people are like, oh yeah, right? So that's those two factors. So are how I'm going to have to do it, which is entirely dependent on a fusion of visual and literary. So he's the most sarcastic guy in the world. And then the whole page is going to be these little scenarios of him enacting with others. And I don't want to give it all away. I'm going to post it tomorrow. So Friday pages I'll post on one day during the weekend, or if I get carried away with myself, really getting involved with the page, it'll post on Monday. Usually in that case, it turns out to be more than one page comics. They turn out to be 2 or 3 page comics. The car that crashes into things comic, I called it part 1 because it's actually, I've already blocked out 3 pages for it of adventures of this car crashing into things that have a target or a bullseye on them. Cinnamon says, next time then, Christopher. Yeah, thanks very much, Cinnamon. So I'm going to wrap up now. I hope that everybody knows that their time has value and their creative output has value. And whether or not, if there's ever moments that you've got people that don't seem to equate value to that for you, or you've got people that don't seem to have a real understanding of the time involved for you to do things, nothing's meant by that. People don't know. They don't know. It's the same as we hired some guys to build our deck. How long is that going to take? Right? That's the challenge of things. It all depends about it. Sarcasm personified, the smile on an actuarial's face. Thank you very much, Rachel. Thanks so much, Janet. Thanks, Seven. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, everybody, for coming and hanging out. I hope that some of these ideas I talked about with color and working with markers helps. If anybody has one-page comic ideas, Rachel's given me one that will be our Monday. Our Monday one-page comic will be the suggestion that Rachel made today. But please feel free. Usually during the streams, you can put it up during the chat. After the stream's over, when it goes out as a video on the YouTube, feel free to put it in the comments, or you can go on to any of the other social outlets that I have and put it there, Instagram or Facebook. And my website's finally fixed, I believe. I believe it is. So feel free to go on there. There's some more fun books or fun pages to read, and that I've got up there. Posted on the page, so you can see some more one-page comics, and they're silly and they're fun. But other than that, I hope everybody has a good weekend. I hope that you have an affordance of time for you to create the things that you want to create and make them. And if you're up for sharing, I'm up for seeing. So feel free to share those with us. And if anybody chooses to do a one-page comic based on any of the ideas that you've seen me do, or the suggestions that you've seen me do, because I list those in my social media, go for it. Please go for it. And if you want to share that, feel free to send me an image, and I'll share that, as long as it's not, it's all ages. Let's just put it that way. So keep your weird, sexy hang-ups to yourself. Not that anybody here is like that. So anyhow, thanks very much, everybody. It's been grand, but I'm going to sign off for now. Have a great weekend. I might stream this weekend. I might not. But if I do, come on out. Hang out. This is a lot of fun for me. So I appreciate it very much. Thanks, gang. Bye for now.